are the benefits of data warehouse? Why actually are we creating this data warehouse? There are a number of benefits that we can avail from using these data warehouses. The very first one is understand the business trends and make better forecasting decisions. For any organization, it is very much necessary to forecast certain decisions. They have to take certain decisions, they have to forecast certain decisions so that they grow more. So for that, for understanding those business trends and to make correct forecasting decisions, these data warehouses, they help them a lot. Secondly, data warehouses, they are designed to perform well enormous amount of data. In the data warehouse, we can store enormous amount of data. So, uh, since in general databases, if we try to store our data, or we in general files, if we try to store our data, we have certain limits on the data that we can store. But data warehouses, they are designed to perform well on enormous amount of data. They are provided with such functionalities that they can work on large amount of data. Next, the structure of data warehouse. It is more accessible for end users to navigate, to understand and to query. Basically, the structure of this data warehouse, it is more accessible for the end users. They can access the structure of data warehouse, they can navigate that from where if some report is generated, so actually from where the report is getting generated, what are the basic factors behind that, so they can navigate, they can understand and they can also raise a query, raise any queries that why is this happening. Any kind of query can be raised out using these data warehouses. Next advantage of data warehouses, queries that would be complex in many normalized databases. They could be easier to build and maintain in our data warehouse. Generally, when we use some normalized databases to store our data, so queries that are complex, that require the analysis of lot of data, so that becomes easier to build and maintain when we are using these data warehouse. Data warehousing, it is an efficient method to manage the demand for lots of information from lots of users. See, today what is happening? Since today this is the era of all digitization, suppose there is a shopping app, let us say Mintra, any shopping app. What is happening there? Whenever you click on any particular item onto that shopping app, it acts as data for the analysis. So that what happens when you have clicked on any particular item that you are just viewing for some sake, but that will be registered as data into the databases at the back, and analysis on that data will be performed, that this particular customer, depending on that what he has searched for, what he wants to buy or what he may buy, so depending on that, whole analysis of data gets take place. So what happens when you click on something, you will be given certain recommended products, that if suppose you are buying something, you purchase a red dress for yourself, what happens then, you will be recommended with certain related products to it, like uh, you will be recommended with red sandals, with red accessories, with the red bags. So that is how the analysis of data will take place on the data that you are purchasing. And since nowadays we all are doing this online shopping, all have become dependent on these online applications, so each and every time when we open any application, we click on something, it becomes a data for the analysis purpose. So you can think of that, how large amount of data that would be for that particular application, because there are billions of users that may be using that particular application, and whenever they click on something, it is getting stored as data, and next time for gaining more, they will recommend you the same products. So at one point of time you can understand that how much data is getting generated. So data, this is the most crucial thing nowadays. The analysis of data, it has become very important nowadays for any organization to gain more, to understand more about the customer. Earlier when we were doing this traditional shopping, this generally did not used to happen. Nowadays the behavior of the customer, it gets analyzed, so that any company, they can retain their customer. If you are buying something from any particular application, they are understanding that what are your choices, they will recommend you those products only, which are of your choice, and you tend to buy those products more because you might be liking them. So that is why it is actually a lot of data that is getting generated. So data warehousing, it is an efficient method to manage uh, this lot of information with lot of users. We can efficiently store this information. Data warehousing, it provides the capabilities to analyze a large amount of historical data. Whatever data we are feeding onto the system, we are not feeding, we are just clicking on something and it gets automatically fed up into the data warehouses for the analysis of data. So all this large amount of historical data, it gets stored onto the data warehouses, and using this data, the analysis on the customer behavior, it gets performed, and various reporting, various queries on the data will be performed, and the people, they can make better decisions for the customer, they can make better strategies for their businesses. So these are the benefits of data warehouse, that we can store large amount of data related to large number of peoples. We can forecast our decisions on the basis of data which is getting stored onto the data warehouse. Now another we can say subtopic of this data warehouse is data mart. Data mart, it is a subset of our directory information store. It is generally oriented to a specific purpose or primary data object which may be distributed to provide the business need. Basically, this data mart, we have a data warehouse, we can have number of data marts where the information from the data warehouse is going, or we can have various data marts from where the information to the data warehouse is coming. So basically data mart, we can say it is a subset of directory information store. It is based on any specific purpose. Like in our data warehouse, we have information related to all the application, whether it is CRM, it is ERP, or any kind of application. While in data marts, we have the subset of information, we have limited information depending on any particular subject. Like we can have the information of few of the important potential customer of the organization. We can have the information on the resources that are being provided by the organization. So basically it is subject oriented, it is for specific purpose. You can say it is a subset of directory information store, and it is generally used for the specific purpose. The fundamental use of data mart, it is a business intelligence. Business intelligence application, it is used to gather, to store, to access, and to analyze the records. Whatever transactions are taking place, whatever taking place into the organization, they will be recorded, they will be kept into the databases as the record. Now there will be intelligence tool, business intelligence tool, that will be gathering this information, storing this information, accessing this information, and analyzing all these records. It can be used, these data marts basically, they can be used by smaller businesses to utilize the data that have accumulated, since it is less expensive than implementing a data warehouse. Generally, when in there's a small organization, there are smaller businesses which do not have all the funds for implementing the data warehouse, they start implementing with certain few data marts, because they are less expensive, they are specific purpose can be used for. That is why this data mart, we can say it is a subset of directory information store which is oriented to the specific purpose and which may be distributed to provide the business needs. Now come the reasons Reasons for creating a data mart. Why are we creating these data marts? First of all, it creates the collective data by a group of users. Data mart again, it is a form of data store only. It will create collective data by a group of users. If you have a group of users, so collective data from those users can be created. Suppose we can see that, let us say we have just talked about a particular shopping app. So in that, what is happening, we see that generally the teenagers in the, or teenager girls who are within the age of, let us say, 13 to 25 something, those age criteria, what color do they prefer more, which brand do they prefer more. So we actually create a group of users for ourselves, and those group of users, we tend to analyze that what are they purchasing more, and depending on the analysis, whenever there is a sale that is coming on that particular brand, or whenever uh, there is a particular festival coming, so we know at that point of time that there will be more sale of these products. So instead of sending the email or sending the messages to the whole set of users that are using that particular app, because if there are girls related products, the boys won't be going to buy it. If there are products which are related to the young generation, all people will not be interested into that. So we need to categorize our customer, we need to group our users, so that we can understand their behavior and we can recommend the products related to that particular customer. So basically in data mart, what do? We create collective data by a group of users. That can be done using our data mart. We can also do easy access to the frequently needed data. Since in a data warehouse, it's a big store of information, so they will be difficult and time taking to retrieve any particular set of information. So when we want easy access to some frequently needed data, so those particular data we can store onto our data mart. From that data warehouse, we can also retrieve it, and we can store some frequently needed data into the data mart. So that advantage that data mart will provide us, that that data will be available to you frequently if you have kept it separately into the data mart. Next reason for creating a data mart is ease of creation. Obviously, creating a small set of databases for storing some particular amount of information, it is easier to create. So that is another reason why we create data marts. Another thing, it improves the end user response time. The response time that is coming from the end user, it gets improved when we are using certain data marts. Then the lower cost than implementing a complete data warehouse. If we are implementing a complete data warehouse which will involve all the applications of the organization, the cost definitely is going to be more of that. When we are implementing certain specific data marts for some frequently needed data or for certain particular group of users, so the cost of implementing it definitely becomes low. Another reason for creating a data mart is we have potential clients that are more clearly defined than in a comprehensive data warehouse. If we want to see who are our potential clients, who are going to give more advantage to the company, so they can be more clearly defined, then we can have it in a comprehensive data warehouse where we have the information related to all the users. If we want the information related to certain potential consumers, so they are more clearly defined into the data marts. Another reason for creating a data mart is it contains only essential business data, and it is, as compared to data warehouse, it is less cluttered. It contains only essential business data. So if there are certain activities, if there is certain group of users, if there are certain frequently used data items, so they can be stored separately into the data marts. And the data onto these data marts, it can come from the data warehouse as well as, and it can come from some general applications, some general data sources also. Now, talking about the types of data mart, there are mainly two approaches to design the data marts. One is the dependent data mart, another is the independent data mart. So talking about the first approach to design a data mart, that is a dependent data mart. A dependent data mart, it is a logical subset of physical subset of a higher data warehouse. According to this technique, the data marts, they are created as a subset of data warehouse. What we generally do in this dependent data mart technique, firstly, a data warehouse is created, from where further various data marts can be created. That is why we are calling it dependent data mart. Because what approach is this one following? Actually, we are first creating a data warehouse. From this data warehouse, since in our data warehouse we have information related to all the users, we want the information related to the potential consumers of our products into a separate space. So for that separate space, a data mart can be created. So basically, what is happening? Firstly, a data warehouse is created from which various data marts can be created. These data marts, they are dependent on the data warehouse and they extract the essential record from that existing data warehouse only. So in this technique, as the data warehouse creates the data marts, therefore there is no need for data marts integration. Do not need to integrate our data marts. There is no need for that. The data warehouse, they will create the data mart for us. That is why we call this approach as the top down approach, because what is happening actually, first of all, the data warehouse is created, and from the data warehouse only we are getting the information onto our data marts. So basically, a dependent data mart, it is a logical subset of the physical subset of higher data warehouse. What is this physical subset and what is this logical subset? Physical is when we have actually the data stored onto the data warehouse. We have in the tables, we have the records into our table, into our databases. That is the physical subset. Logical subset means what? We are not actually storing the information, we are accessing the information from this physical subset only. There are pointers which are linked. There are pointers into our data mart which are linked with the physical subset of information of the data warehouse. So whenever the information is required, that logical subset, the pointer will be created that will retrieve the information from our data warehouses and that will be delivered. So basically, a dependent data warehouse, it is a logical subset of the physical subset of the higher data warehouse. And dependent, why are we calling it dependent data mart? Because actually it is extracting the data from only the data warehouse. So that is why we are calling these data marts as the dependent data marts, because these data marts, they are not having the information from some separate sources, they are gaining their information from the data warehouses, and subsets of the information according to the users, according to the requirement, are getting created.